take it. Word.
大家好。
Hello, my dear friends.
好，今天是我们的金菩提家训第20天。
So today is part 20 for
这一
Grandmaster
天的主题呢，还
JinBodhi's
是
Family
敬畏
Precepts.
敬畏
And
天地自然，
today's topic
敬畏
is
佛菩萨，
still
敬畏因
respect
果，
and having awe
敬畏生
and
命，
veneration towards
敬畏
Buddhas,
未来，
towards
乃至
life,
敬畏一切。
towards future, towards everything.
为了将这个道理呢，让大家能够听懂和理解呢，
In order for everybody to
我们还是从
understand
故事
it
开始。
better, let's start from the stories.
好，我先讲一个叫做
So the first
赔偿
story
的故事。
is the story
比如
of
说给你东西
compensation.
弄坏了，我赔给你。
Well, it's just like if I damage something, I need to compensate. If I damage the car, then I need to compensate for
这个故事
the
发生在一位叫
damage of the
李
car.
先生的，
This happened on Mr. Lee
大约在半年前，
about 6 months ago,
晚上11点多，
11 p.m.
司机哈，
in the
在
night.
这个驾
A driver
这个公司的车
was driving a company car
中
on the way back home.
被摩托车上的人呢
And
受伤了。
it had a collision with a motorcycle, a rear end collision. But the driver on the motorcycle was injured. Usually, motorcycles, if they collide into something,
路边的石头啊，或者树啊，
either it's a tree or a stone, then the driver would more likely to be
发生了
injured.
车祸，
And
是
because of the
有死亡。
accident,
当时上面
well, the driver had the injury, but
的救护车
was still alive, and it wasn't that serious, and so they called the police. The driver called the police and ambulance first, and then called
找到了一份新的工作。
his employer. This driver has just found that job and just started to be the driver of the company, and so he called the ambulance, and then the police, and then the employer. And very soon, the police came, the ambulance came to send the injured driver to the hospital. And during the whole process, the employer, his employer, the owner of the company, didn't appear and didn't send anyone to come to deal with it. And the owner of the company said, well, even though the car is a company car, but it's almost midnight. You were not doing anything for the company at that time.
晚上不上班的，
Well, we don't need anyone to work at the middle of the
会
night.
发生事故。
So how can you have that car accident? And so my company will not be responsible for that. You're using the company car to do something private. So whatever happened, you have to take responsibility to
是开车前没有
anything that happens. Well, the driver didn't thought too much about
有
it,
的一个工人，刚刚找到一个
and
开车的这么一个当司
so
机
he just lost his job and just found this new job as a driver, and the whole family is waiting for him to support all these, medical expenses and other expenses.
之后呢，
How can he pay for that? Even if he sell the whole house, he couldn't pay for it. And
是
but the owner of the car is not the employer, is not the owner of the company, is a Mr. Lee. And this Mr. Lee
所说的这个李师兄，
is actually this main character that we have just
接
mentioned.
到这个撞
And
车
so at the middle of the night when Mr. Lee received the call, he was shocked.
想不起来这到底
He
撞车
couldn't
和他有什么事儿。
imagine how come this accident has something to do with him.
因
But
为等于警察
because this happened and the police called him,
你是这个车的车主登记，
and he said, you are the owner of the car.
电话就意
And
思说这发
so
生了事故，
the police told him what happened,
接受
and
官司和赔
you
偿。
need to wait for paying for all these expenses.
左思右想，
And
想起来，几年
a
前
lawsuit And well, he thought it over and record. Oh, before he had a business with in a partnership with his friend, and that friend used his ID to purchase the car, and then did the insurance and got the plate for the car. But this is a big problem here. Every car has insurance, right? According to the Canadian law, once you pay for the insurance of the car, then this car can, then you can drive the car. Because otherwise, if you don't have the insurance, what if you have a car accident? And then there will always be, whenever there's a car accident, you have to, there are some compensations or pay for expenses. And because for this car accident, it's quite confused. This is a company car, but it's not used for doing something for the company, and the owner of the car is another person. And also, last night when the accident happened, it was right after the insurance was expired. It's about like 12 hours after the insurance expired. Well, even it's only half an hour after expired, then, well, according to the law, maybe even just 5 minutes after it expired, it doesn't work anymore. Because car accident can happen any time. Say, for example, July the 15th is the expiration date. What if you have a car accident on July the 15th? Say, like 23:55. It's like 11:55 p.m. at night. Well, Joyce, would it still be counted? Oh, yeah. According to law, if it's still July the 15th, usually we would say it ends at 12 a.m. So if it's before 12 a.m., then insurance is still valid. But after 12 a.m., then even just 1 minute after that, the insurance is not valid anymore. And so according to law, it's not like a family issue. According to law, it's very clear, the very, very clear-cut boundary. It just expired, and then the car accident happened. And the car was registered under a private name. And this owner of the car is not working for the company and is not a shareholder of the company. Well, but the owner of the company, that employer, said that he will not take any responsibility because the driver is not working for the company while the car accident happened. And also, this driver is a new driver. And the third issue is that this insurance wasn't bought under the company name. It was under Mr. Lee's name. And so, well, when we hear about this story, we would think that this employer, the owner of the company, is not very, not very moral. But legally, he doesn't have any responsibility, because moral and virtue has nothing to do with legal responsibility. If somebody was injured on the road and people didn't care about the injured person, you don't have any legal responsibility. If you hit that person or injured that person, then you have legal responsibility. And usually, morally, if somebody had an injury, you should look after that person. But that's just a moral, idea. It's not a legal responsibility. So for this car, get back to the car, the insurance has just expired, and a car incident happened at midnight, and the company doesn't want to take any responsibility, and the insurance is under Mr. Lee's name. And so, wow, what a mess. So what the court say? The judge said, I don't care what reason happened. Well, I don't know whether it's a company car or what, because it's hard for the judge to make it clear. What the judge wants to know is who owns the car, who paid for the insurance, who's going to pay for the medical expenses and expenses for loss of working time and, all these expenses. So the court, the judge, only want to make it clear who's going to pay for those expenses. And he doesn't want to, get it clear about whose name or responsibility. And so for this Mr. Lee, it's like he just sit home and something bad suddenly fall on him. And so after the first, court, he was judged that he needs to pay 1 million RMB, including medical expenses and expenses to cover the loss of working time. Maybe his monthly income is only 2,000 RMB, and so 1 million RMB is a huge number for him. And Mr. Lee thought, I almost, and he thought, what the heck it is? I didn't know that this car is actually bought under my name, and so he hired a lawyer to appeal, and he said at least he couldn't pay that much. And because, well, actually the appeal was quite effective, because then they did some investigation about how much damage and injury has been done. And so the injured driver, they found out that the driver actually was drunk when he was driving the motorcycle. And so he was driving when drunk. And so usually a rear-end collision, the car at the back should be responsible for that. I don't know which country's law actually decides that the front car should be responsible for that. And then this motorcyclist was, because the motorcyclist was drunk, and also because it's a rear-end collision and the motorcycle is at the back, and therefore the judge has changed the amount. Mr. Lee only needs to pay 380,000 RMB, and so it's a lower pressure, and so he borrowed some money and with his own money, and he paid all that 380,000. After he paid all of that and all was done, this Mr. Lee called his friend who was the owner of the company, and he said, see, you used my name to purchase the car and purchase the insurance. You couldn't just let me pay for all of these. At least you should pay some. And my family, I have my mother who's already 80 years old. I have kids and 3 kids. But the owner of the company said, you go talk to the driver. Do you remember that you recommended that person to be our driver? And because of him, you recommended him. He brought so much loss to my company. Well, this employer actually was not that reasonable. And then Mr. Lee, he hung up the phone, and then after that Mr. Lee couldn't get through and call him. And then he thought, you see, they actually, to make money wasn't easy. But this employer, this owner of the company, was very rich, and he made a lot of money. You just used my name to buy the car. I didn't even have money to buy a car. I can only drive a motorcycle. But that owner of the company just doesn't accept his call, doesn't take the call, as if this car accident has nothing to do with him and nothing has anything to do with him. And then this Mr. Li and his wife cannot sleep. And therefore, when they're lying on the bed, they were talking to each other. You see, this disaster just falling on their head. How come they're so unlucky? And then his wife said, well, maybe we should go see a fortune teller and see if there's some problem with the feng shui here, or what's the matter? And so they pondered quite a few days. And this Mr. Li suddenly realized, oh, he said, I feel it's almost like a consequence of something. Now, when I think about the cause, I actually feel better. And then the wife said, oh, what is that? You know, if you owe people money, then you need to pay back the debt, right? More than 10 years ago, that businessman, that owner of the company, we partnered to do some business in real estate. And I also was a shareholder because I am very good at numbers. And so I'm in charge of finance. And he was in charge of developing the country and marketing. And at that time, they made some money. And at that time, because I was in charge of finance, and the other Mr. Liu, the owner of the company, he didn't know much about finance and the numbers. And so, you see, I got the money secretly, and he didn't even know. I secretly took 170 to 180,000 RMB. Well, after these 10 years, these 170 or $180 plus interest would be something like 380. Now I'm paying off. Now I feel good now. I feel like I'm not owing him anything. And his wife said, oh, that's right. In the future, never do that anymore. How come you still, secretly took the money and you didn't tell me? And so his husband said, well, he dare not tell the wife. So some wives are pretty good. If you know that your husband took the money from, from not a good cause, then you should be careful. Well, this cause and consequence wasn't a too serious one. It doesn't have anything, it hasn't had any, life-threatening things, or it hasn't related to losing a life. So if you owe money, you just pay back. So this is the lightest or easiest consequence. It was just because of the time and space. It was good that Mr. Li reflected and found out what was done wrong. And so he actually thought about that he did something not so good to his friend. Usually people always blame others, but actually what he experienced is because more than 10 years ago he did something really wrong. We call him brotherly, actually. This brotherly, after this happened, and when everything was done, he started to learn Buddha Dharma, because so that's why we later call him brotherly. And he was not in partnership with Mr. Liu, that $170,000 plus interest turning into 380,000 RMB. This actually is the easiest and the lightest consequence in this law of consequence stories. Well, we have even 10 more serious consequences. So the next story is about the power of the divinities. Well, that's a story during the Cultural Revolution. If you don't know about Cultural Revolution, you can Google them online. At that time, in the commune, what we call commune, they have several villages, including several villages. Now we call that a county, and so they're governing about 20 villages. And so we have already changed the name to a county or something like that, or municipality. But at that time, they're called commune. And during the Cultural Revolution, they do not allow religious belief. Then they always abuse those educated person and always abuse a lot of things. Anyways, and so in that commune and that government, they called people to have assembly to criticize those old, they call it 4 old religions or habits or traditions. I still remember in my childhood, we need to criticize and struggle with Confucius. I asked the teacher, how come, what Confucius did wrong? And did this ancient people hurt Chairman Mao? Well, the teacher said, don't ask too much. Just criticize him. And therefore, so the government of that commune told everybody to come to criticize these the divinities and Buddhas. And so they actually had the assembly in the workshops of a tobacco drying workshop. And so there are some leaders there. And so they took all the Buddhist statues there and put them in the rooms, and so they will criticize them. And one of the young leaders there was smoking, and he used the cigarette end to burn the eye of the Bodhisattva statue and was ridiculing and said, see, you said you have soul or you have spirit. I'm now burning your eyes, and show me if you have spirit. Those young, there's an old saying in China, the young bulls or oxen, they are not afraid of tiger, so they don't know much, they're ignorant, so they don't have any respect or fear. And so usually, over there, that was the town. They have some small stores, and so it's like the town of that commune. And then they have some stores. They have some, and one of the store is for selling coffins. And there was the highest level leader is the secretary of that commune, and so that secretary of the commune, he passed by the coffin store and was very curious about the coffin. And right after, he just had lunch, and so he lied down in one of the coffins, and he thought, if I found a right size of the coffin, then I can use that coffin. He was joking with the owner of the coffin store, but the owner of the store was very, he didn't dare to say anything. And so when they were having that assembly to blaspheme Buddhas and divinities, You know, the tobacco drying shop, they actually have some gunpowder. Not gunpowder. Actually, it is gunpowder for making, you know, fireworks. And so they have different chemical elements. When they are moistured, when they are wet, then they won't explode. And if you do not combine these chemical elements together, they won't explode. And even if you put them into fire, they won't explode, because if you do not mix them together, they won't explode. And so they have like nitrogen, they have... And so they were having that meeting there, and one of the leader of the ladies took her child to come for the meeting. The child couldn't understand anything, but all of a sudden the child burst into crying, and he was so loud they couldn't continue the meeting. And so another leader of the ladies, and so these two ladies brought the child away from the meeting site. And right after they left, they heard a huge loud noise. The whole house where they were having the meeting exploded, and so people were fled from that room, and some people were injured, and then they were running away, and some people were killed also. Do you know why the child cried? A lot of people know, usually before 7 years old, little kids, they can feel, and what they can feel and what they can see, actually adults won't know. Maybe it's a coincidence that this child shouldn't be killed. Maybe the parents hasn't done too much bad thing. Maybe these two ladies hasn't done too many bad things. These two lady leaders took the crying child away right after the three left. The room exploded. And remember, we talked about the coffin shop. That secretary of the commune, he actually lied in one of the coffins and said that was the right size, right? And so he actually used that exact coffin for himself because he was killed in that explosion. And so the people there in the village still remember this. And he said, you really went too far to blaspheme the Buddha statues, blaspheme the Buddhas. And so we really should revere Buddhas. If you do not believe in Buddhas, that's okay. It's okay, you don't have any religious belief, but you cannot blaspheme any Buddhas or, divinities. Okay, while you're still okay with the stories, I'll continue with the third one, which is also a little bit terrifying. That's the story of a soft-shell turtle. That was in Thailand. It was a local hospital. The director of the hospital told a story about a very strange patient. This director of that small hospital, he was also a doctor. He does both. He's both a doctor and also do some admin work. He said ever since he became a doctor, he's never encountered such a patient. That patient, within 3 years, he had 5 surgeries, and every surgery is to cut part of his body. And this patient's name is Wenlai. That's in Thai language. Once, the little finger of his right hand was bit by a soft-shelled turtle. Usually, you just use some, antibiotics or something, and then the inflammation will be fine. But after a few weeks, then the little finger started to inflame and swelling and very painful. And so he went to the hospital, and the director of the hospital, that doctor, checked for him and found that the toxic bacteria has already entered the joint of his bone. If it continues to invade, it will even challenge his life. And therefore, the director of the hospital said he needs to suggested him to cut the little finger, because otherwise it will threaten his life. The patient has no other choice. And the director of the hospital said that's the only way, so he had to accept the surgery to cut the little finger. And so for 6 months, it was fine. In Thailand, there are lots of beach, and he went to play in the beach. Another turtle bit his little toe. It always bit his little finger or little toe. And after a few days, it also inflamed and swelled and painful. And so he went to the hospital again, and the director of the hospital checked it and said that the bacteria invaded again. And his little toe also needed to be cut, because otherwise it's risky, his life. And then when Lai said, oh, he had to do it, and then, well, he had to accept it. It was good. It's only the little finger and the little toe. Well, it was okay. Well, in less than a year, Wen Lai's fingers and his toes, that injured, the wounded part started to inflame again, and he went to the hospital and checked again. The poisonous, bacteria invaded again, because it didn't stop the bacteria to invade, and the doctors suggested that the only way to stop the spreading of the bacteria is to cut off his one hand and one feet. When I heard this, it's really a big pity, but that happened, and so one of his hand and one of his feet was cut off. What do you think? Wen Lai's terrible experience is very, different. He's really, really have pity on him, but it's really hard to understand why this happened. And one day, he wanted to, in Thailand, there are lots of Buddhist temples. And Wen Lai wanted to have some good fortune. So he went with other people to go to a temple. And all of them will stay overnight in the temple, because the next morning they will have some ceremonies. Something happened again. At the middle of the night, when he fell asleep, in Thailand, those temples are in the suburbs and in the mountains. And of course, there have all kinds of, mosquitoes, ants, and flies, and also cockroach. And at the middle of the night, he was so painful, and the wounded part almost healed. A rat came and bit it open.
有人说呢，这个老鼠哈，
Some people say rats,
它不像狗，
they're not like dogs or
不是食肉
wolves.
动物，
Rats
一
are
般是
not,
不吃肉食，
they don't eat
尤其
meat.
是不吃活着的肉食。
Um,
老鼠也更没有吃人的习惯。
They're not cannibalized, cannibals, and especially they don't eat
哎
living,
呀，它这个伤
beings. But for some reason, the rat bit 文来,
那个事儿
and
怕了，然后咬了之后赶快去找医院。
rats usually only bit dead bodies. But Wenlai was bit by the rat, and so after that, he had to go and check in the hospital.
担心的是对的，
And the doctor said
事儿还很
it does have trouble
大。
there
医院从检查到
because
回来
after they have checked
你
this,
说你截了2次了，截肢2次，我们得小心。
because he has already been cut off the hand and feet, so they were very careful. And so they checked again in another bigger hospital, and they waited for quite a few days for the result to come back. But the result very clear that the bacteria has invaded even further and more serious. And so the director of the hospital called some other senior doctors to come and discuss about it. They need to cut more. He has to cut
就他那个小腿
his lower arm and also the lower leg of Wenlai.
从来没有发生过
This has never been happening on one person. The director of the hospital was very curious
我是一个有
because
信仰
in
的国家
Thailand, a lot of people
他说这个
they have
文来到底
religious belief. And so he did some investigation about what Wenlai did
仔细的一番打
and
听
checked
调
his background. After very careful investigation, he found out that Wenlai now is 43 years old. He was a farmer and also part-time as a construction worker, but he likes to drink alcohol and especially are passionate about lake fish,
东西有兴趣
especially those
中医里头也可能会
turtles,
讲到
soft-shell
龟
turtles,
之类的
tortoise or turtles.
治疗关节
Sometimes the TCM would say it will help the yin in the body or maybe nourish the kidney and
作用和好
maybe prevent arthritis.
在泰国
And
多水的地方
because in Thailand, it's very, there are lots of water there are lots of fish
他会买
and
一点来
turtles. So
所以
he
呢他吃这种
usually, very often, he would buy turtles to eat, and he has already had 20 years eating turtles.
有一天文莱呢
One day,
到市场发现有一只
he went to the market and found
10多公斤大的
a turtle,
大鳖
a huge turtle, over 10 kilograms.
来卖的这个农民呢
And
急需的用钱
because the seller of the turtle is, urgently need money, so that can be sold very
又很划算
cheap. And so he thought it was a good deal, and therefore he purchased it because he wanted to have the nourishment. Such a big turtle, it would be even more nourishing. And so he purchased the big
回
turtle.
了家之后就琢磨
And when he went back home, such a big turtle, if he killed the turtle,
孩子都不吃的
his wife and his children never eat turtles.
把它杀了之后这个
So
一下吃不完2-3
if he cannot finish the whole turtle meat,
久一点怎么办
he wanted to eat it for a longer period of time.
他想出
What
一个
can he
合适的
do?
方法就叫做
He
一龟
found
分7吃
He found a bizarre way to eat the turtle,
把
and
这个龟甲类
he
的
he want to eat the turtle in 7
是很长寿的
times, because all these shelled turtles, they are very long life, and they have very strong life. If they have been injured, and if it's not a fatal
往往能活相当长的时间
injury, usually they can still be alive and sometimes can live quite long.
这个方法呢
And so when Wenlai eat the turtle,
多少这个鳖肉
how he eat the turtle?
不要害的地方
the night when he wants to eat the turtle, he just cut off that part of the turtle. And he cut off that piece of meat and then just put some powder, medicine powder, to stop the bleeding. And the next day, when he want to eat more meat, he would just cut another part of it, and until at last he would eat maybe the heart or the head of the turtle. Well, anyways, that turtle, he was able to eat for many days, and he thought he was very smart. That was how the director of the hospital found out. Well, Wen Lai was not a very, his appearance is not really terrible and not very mean or cruel. It was just like an ordinary appearance. Some people, even though they are very cruel in their heart, we cannot see from their appearance. But the doctor, this director of the hospital, found out this, and he thought that the way how he eat the turtle already showed how cruel Wen Lai is. His terrible experience must have something to do with how he treated the turtles, because his parents or his uncles or aunts has never had this illnesses. How come he encountered this? And for 2 times he was bit by the turtles, and in the temple, and he was the only one who was bit by the rat. Every being has souls, has lives. When I'm telling this story, I really feel uneasy. Some of our online friends said it's really, terrible, terrifying. How can he even eat? Even just listening to the story is terrifying. When we hear the terrifying consequence on him, it feels very cruel. But when we hear how he treated the turtle, it's just think how cruel he could have been. Just thinking about the animals being cut again and again and slowly being killed, it's really, oh my gosh, terrifying. So our online friends are really contemplating on this, and Christine and myself are thinking about it. Let's go back to the first story. When I look at the comments, the first story about the owner of the company, even though it's not illegal that he didn't take any responsibility, just found that the owner of this company also, just didn't take any responsibility and even cheated the Mr. Lee and took his ID and registered and purchased the car. A lot of our online friends said that this owner of the company is really not moral. But when they heard it's because Mr. Lee secretly took the money from this Mr. Liu, who is the owner of the company, and then all of us, and including our online friends, finally realized that this is a cause and consequence. So that owner of the company, it sounds that he's not very kind, usually because he borrowed the ID to buy the company, and because this is the company car, usually the company will at least help something or take some responsibility. But this owner of the company even refused to pick up the phone from Mr. Lee. And now we realize that everything happens with a reason. Everything is because of the cause and consequence. If we look at what happens separately from what happened before, we would think that the owner of the company is not reasonable. But when we relate it to what happened before, everything sounds very reasonable. I really, felt very. I thought a lot when I think about these. Really, cause and consequence is always there. And you see, Mr. Li took the money, and this cause and consequence also added the interest. 180,000 turned into 380,000. And it's very reasonable that Mr. Li later, this brother Li, later he learned Buddhism, and so he understand cause and consequence, and therefore he related these two happenings together and realized why that was happened. And so if you owe money, you have to repay. And when we heard the second story about Revere Buddhas and divinities, in my childhood, I still remember in Chinese New Year, we'll, bow to the Buddhas. And my parents and grandparents usually would say, go into the temple, don't touch anything, do not, you need to be very respectful. And you cannot blaspheme, the divinities. Usually, the seniors will always remind us. Just now, I saw a comment from an online friend. This consequence from, blaspheme the divinities is so terrible. An online friend shared a story. His family, I think it was also in the Cultural Revolution, they used to have a staff who worked for them. And when somebody came to destroy the Buddhist statue, that staff threw the Buddhist statue to the river. And later, he got married and had a son. Of course, the whole family was very happy. When the son grew up, once, the child, maybe a teenager, he liked to, in the summer, to swim in the river. But when he jumped into the river, there was like a very sharp bamboo, went through his body and killed him. See, this is like if you do not revere Buddhas and Buddha statues, it's terrible. The consequences could be very terrible. The story also reminds me of some students who didn't revere, Buddhas. And it's Master, you shared that story with us, and that your classmate took away the decoration of the Buddha statue, and it was actually Master's master who actually tried hard to protect him, that he didn't die. He wasn't killed, but he still got crippled. And some consequences not went to themselves, but went to their children. That's even more terrible. Like they couldn't do anything about the terrible result to their children, and they couldn't, they can't save the child. That suffering is even more. That's really terrible. Now, when we have opportunity to learn Buddha Dharma, we need to respect Buddha, respect Master, and respect divinities. Now, sometimes when we have opportunities to visit, sometimes to visit church or other religious places, even in a tour, when we are visiting those places, we also need to be very respectful to that place and everything in that sacred place. Even, yeah, that's right, Master said. I remember my Master said during the Cultural Revolution, he was also, criticized and
他就是希望是说，我的师傅是出家人，
and so
要让他把这个头发蓄起来，就不要留头发。
they asked him to,
师傅说我这个头发剃惯了。
my master, they asked him to grow hair, but my master said, I'm already used to having no hair. The longest time is only 1 month. I don't cut the hair, and so they said, no, you have to cut. You have to keep your hair. So there were 2 months that my master didn't cut the hair, and so the, those red guards in the Cultural Revolution, and he used the shoe to beat my master until my master was bleeding.
你看那是师傅批斗挨打，可能是70年左右吧。
I think that was in 1970s when he was, beat and criticized.
85年还是86
And then in 1985 or 1986,
我亲自看到了
I saw with my own eyes
他的小孩
that,
出了一件和
you know,
之前讲那个
the
事
red
儿
guard, his child
他那个小孩可能
had something happened to him, very similar to what Joyce said.
里面
That
有个湖
teenager
有河水
in the
那个
summer,
灌嘛
there was a lake there.
那个小孩就跳
And
湖里
so
但是呢
that
谁都没有
naughty
想到
child, nobody
疯子一样
expected
穿那个小裤衩
that naughty child was like crazy and jumping and wanted to jump into the water. Usually when they want to swim, they are just walking to the lake and it would be safer. But that little child wanted to jump. I was watching with my own eyes, and he ran about 30 to 50 meters. And when he was approaching the lake, he also imitated, like
弹跳力很好
jumping.
一个弧形这样下去
And in a curve, he jumped into the water.
没钻到水里头那个
But-
在水面下头10公分的样子有那个巨大的木桩子那个树
But under the water, they were those wooden,
色的
very sharp woods under the water, and his head go down first. So
这个事儿晚上回去告诉
hit
师傅
those
这个事儿
sharp wood, and immediately blood came out, and he was killed, and it was terrible. And so we called the police, and then my master asked, who's that child? And then I told
别这样
my master. And then my master said, I've already told that red guard not to hit me with the shoe.
头发蓄起来啊就拿
And he always asked my master
抡起来
to keep the hair, not to cut the hair.
皮靴
And
皮靴啊
You
那
know,
个大皮底多硬啊
in Qinghai and Tibet, they wear those very heavy boots, and it's very hard. And therefore, when he hit with that heavy boot, my master's head was bleeding after he beat him.
他的孩子
And
跳水
so
一下
his child
哎
jumped into the water and right away was
他这个
killed
身体撞到木桩上之后
when his head hit
撞到木桩子上
that
停了
wooden stick.
才倒下去
And he actually was hold by the wooden stick because it was very sharp. It hold the little boy's body and then fell down. And after that, I didn't even dare to walk by that place.
在伤害别人的时候
So I would say, when you want to hurt other people, please be careful. Respect Buddhas, revere Buddhas and revere practitioners, and even, revere everything. Grandmaster in our last class reminded us to respect everything, even tables and chairs and everything. They all
小朋友们
have feelings.
我一直保持
I'd like to remind all of you, whatever I use, any items that I use, I will always be very careful and take care of them and look after them. It's not that, I can't pay for a new one. It's just that I need to respect everything that I use, including your clothes and shoes. If you care about them and love them, then you can wear them for longer. Now, maybe you have more money, you don't care that much. But when you don't have that much money, if you can wear one clothes for 10 years or 15 years, you would think, oh, that saves you so much money. And also when I eat, I never have leftovers. And whenever I eat with with other friends, I usually would say, just give me as much as I can finish. Some people want to give me more because they don't want me to be hungry. Sometimes I'm too shy to blame them, so I eat all of them. So I have to eat all of them because I don't want to waste. Just think about the grains, from the seed. When you plant the seed and after the 4 seasons, if there's no rain, it won't grow. If there are other insects or worm, it would eat the seed. If the farmers do not do the weeding, then it won't grow. And so they need to water and fertilize and do weeding and get away in the worms. And also whenever it needs water, there should be rain. Whenever it needs sunshine, there should be sunshine. And after it harvests, then you need people to cut it and process it and grind it into like flour and then turn it into bread or noodles or pasta. And so there's a Chinese poem when the farmers are working under the sun and they're sweating and working so hard. They bend their back and working so hard. Do you know each grain in your bowl all contains the hard work of so many beings? And so if you waste one bowl of grain, you would have to go hungry for 36 days. Sometimes you think, oh, see, my father has a lot of money. How can I go hungry in the future? Even the emperor cannot guarantee someone not to go hungry. So we really need to have that reverence, that awe, and therefore we won't make mistakes. We won't do wrong things. And, some northern people, the parents are spoiling their children and they only eat the fillings of the steamed buns and then they don't eat the bun itself. Well, if you waste so much, you will be punished. Some children, they say, oh, their parents already cooked the rice and then they don't want to eat the rice and they threw the rice away in the garbage. Oh, I tell you, you will be punished. Maybe you don't want to hear it. Well, but you can correct it right away from now on. Maybe it's still in time because otherwise you'll be punished. You need to cherish everything you have. A lot of things. Look at this elephant, this little elephant. It's a very normal Dharma gift, blessed gift. It's from the peach wood from my hometown. And the peach wood, they didn't know that the peach wood actually can dispel evil spirit. They just put the peach wood there. I took the peach wood here. I know this can dispel evil things. And so I would dry them and then we carve them into Dharma gifts. the whole process is very, we need to transport all those peach wood here. We need to dry them. It's a very complicated process until it turns into this auspicious elephant. I'm not intentionally saying something or boasting. Do you know this incense burner in the Song Dynasty? Who will use this? Only like level 3 or 4 and above can use this kind of incense burner. Now we're mimicking these kind of incense burners, but it's also very, very hard, and it goes through many processes. I know a lot of different knowledges, and so I purchased a whole big batch at a good price, and then so that I can share them with you. If you don't know, well, if you touch it, it's so smooth, maybe smoother than your skin. An incense burner like this, if it's from the Song Dynasty, how much would it worth? I'll tell you, minimum $50,000 US, and maximum would be 500 million US or above. If you don't know it, you don't know how precious it is, how valuable it is. And you would think, oh, peach wood is nothing. Well, let me tell you, if there's going to be an earthquake, if you have peach wood in your house, then it will start to shake, maybe 1 day or 2 days earlier. And if you have a peach wood sword, if there are evil energy coming, then it will shake. You don't believe because you haven't experienced, you haven't had evil energy there. Usually when you have pain, then you know how effective the painkiller is. So if you experience that, then you will know how effective this is. Look at these gem bracelet. They are all natural gem. In order for us to investigate it, we went to the mines to study. All those workers in the mines, they're very thin. They pick these stones, and nobody can tell which is valuable. And then experienced workers will pick from all of those different stones. You just look at this bracelet. They are so even colored. Maybe from thousands and thousands of stones that they pick, you can only pick and choose one. But if there are any defects there, you have to discard it. And you don't know how hard it is to make such a bracelet. You never know that this natural gem, it takes like 2 billion years to eventually have such a gem. But if you really, when you go to the mine and see all those workers picking so many stones, and if you get even just one, you know how hard it is to get even just one bead. You would know how valuable and how precious it is. And then you would, when you understand the value, then you would respect it, and then you would cherish it. I hope you hold it. You should revere it, and don't say anything bad about it, because this bracelet comes to protect you. And Joyce said, after I heard your story, Grandmaster, a lot of our friends are, hearing with their heart. They are repenting the wrong things that they have done, and their disrespect towards food, disrespect towards a lot of things. And a friend was saying that, oh, I'm actually that one that Master mentioned. I'm that one who only eat the fillings of the bun. And another friend said, before I come to Bodhi, before, at home, I did eat, turtles and snakes. Now I know I light candles for them and I repent. Could Grandmaster tell me what we can do to repent? Well, repent first means I know it's wrong, and in the future I'm never going to do that again. And secondly, to for those those beings that have been hurt, you can light candles or lights. In the future, if you have the opportunity, you need to set free some lives. But for setting free the lives, in some countries, they have some rules. It's a scientific thing. In some countries, when you set free some animals, it can, have some new pollution. So you need to follow the rules of the country. So some people set free some snakes, and then the snakes go everywhere. Then the farmers cannot plant cannot plant anything, and then they had to kill all the snakes. So setting free the animals sometimes can create problems, animals or fish or something. So you need to consult with the authority, the local authorities, and consult with experienced people who set free. And some people made mistake that set free the lake fish to the ocean, and you're actually killing that fish. So that is just a form. You're not protecting the life. You're actually hurting the life. So what I suggest is to harm less or no harm. Don't eat them. Set free, you need to do it in a good way and reasonably. And like 10 years ago, fellow practitioner in Mongolia, he said, when I set free the lives of the animals, look at the cloud, it's so beautiful, the sky is so beautiful. Do you know what he set free? It's 10,000 loach, the mudfish, and he sent those loach to the fields, the farming fields, and there's no water there, and so he didn't know he's actually killing those mudfish. Well, probably better not to harm. He just sent all those mudfish in the very dry field. And he took a picture of the sky and showed me. I'm like, oh my gosh, how can I encounter people like you? I should set you free. Don't follow me. How come you so ignorant? Well, Grandmaster, we just mentioned that we need to revere divinities and Buddhas. A lot of students and disciples wanted to learn some basic rules that we need to abide by so that they won't make mistakes unintentionally. Grandmaster, could you teach us? Could you tell us the rules? All right. There are different Buddhist schools. The Tibetan Buddhist school and the Southern Buddhist school and another Buddhist school. The Chinese people, when they go to temples, men or women, you're not allowed to wear shorts. So the pants need to be longer than the knees. And you cannot bare feet. You can't even wear those stockings. The silk stockings are not allowed. Some tourists some tourists say, well, I'm wearing silk stockings. It just has the same color as the skin. But the manager of so but the manager of the temple says, well, it actually equals to your wearing the shoes. So going to the temple, you're not allowed, you shouldn't wear shoes or stockings. And if they have a sign, no photograph, then please don't take any photographs. There was a disciple, a man, he liked to take pictures. I actually taught him how to take pictures. And then he went to the Thailand royal palace. They have a big sign. Even if you can't read their language, but they have a picture of a camera with a cross there. And he asked me to take pictures and asked me to protect him to take pictures. But he secretly wanting to take pictures. And then the guard there said, well, because you took pictures, we'll have to take away your camera. And so in a temple or whatever religious place, if they do not allow you to take pictures, never take pictures. And that disciple, complained and said, oh, Grandmaster, you have such great Dharma power. You didn't even protect me from, not having the camera being taken away. Well, you break the law, the rules there. You shouldn't do that. And when you offer incense and when you make offerings, you'd better use your own money. And children, they use their parents' money. They can ask for some money or borrow some money from their parents. But if you go with your friends, all the offerings and, whatever you offer, incense, flowers, or donations, you need to use your own money. In Taiwan, they sometimes will offer some, food or fruits or flowers or jewels. In Taiwan, or Southern Buddhist school, they usually would do that. Don't use your friend's money. That's not allowed, because otherwise the blessings will go to your friend. So your offerings won't be recognized. And also the door seal, in the Chinese temples, usually also the many families, they have a standing wood at the door. That's the door seal. You shouldn't stand on the door seal. You should just step over the door seal. You shouldn't stand on it. So don't do that. Don't stand on it. If you go to the royal palace or you go to the temple, I would suggest you not to touch anything that is not yours. That's their thing, that's valuable. And even the banister. Because if you do not know the culture there, you might be hurt, or you may be caught, or you may be cursed. So you need to be very careful. Do you still remember the two sisters in Taiwan? When I mentioned that, you'll be frightened, right? So you need to revere any divinities and Buddhas. If you don't know much, but at least you need to bear that awe and veneration. And if you go to other religious places, don't say whatever you want to say. Don't say anything rude or, and do not bring meat into a temple. It's different from, picnicking somewhere in outdoors. And most importantly, you can never slander or blaspheme any masters or Buddhas, because otherwise, if you have bad luck, nobody can help you. Just like this one lie from the story, in Thailand. How many parts of your body can be cut off? So you need to be very careful. And also, when you lit the incense, especially when they have a bamboo stick there, and sometimes the flame is very big. Some people don't know, so they blow the flame off. Well, you shouldn't blow it off. What I would do is use my hand to shake it off. And so you are offering the incense with the smoke. And so because our mouth can eat anything, it's not clean enough. The filthy air would, is not good for the offering. Those people who are in the temple when they're making the offerings, they need to wear facial masks to prevent their the qi from their mouth to blow to any sacred items. Whether you believe in Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, or other religious beliefs, before you go there, 3 days before that, you should not eat meat. You should purify yourself, and you should also take a bath. And from inside and out, all the clothes should be very clean. You don't need to look very pretty, but it needs to be very clean. So it should be like that. Don't say that, this morning I worked very hard. Buddhas should understand that. But if your lack of that respect and reverence, then you won't be protected as much. And you won't be blessed as much. And so when you're offering incense, some people put some sand in the incense burner, and it's very hard and solid, and then you cannot put the incense inside. And when the incense is too high, it might fall. Well, when you purchase a incense burner, also we need to have a special wooden plate to cover or to press the ashes of the incense. Don't press them too hard. Well, our center should prepare some of those plates. And so there was once when I was offering the incense, the ashes of the incense was too hard, and then I was not able to put the incense there because the sister has just divorced, and when he was pressing the ashes of the incense, he was thinking that that's her ex-husband, and he was pressing very, very hard. So when you're doing this, you cannot have any, negative thoughts. So when you're doing this, you need to be very respectful and very careful and do it well and form a good habit. Otherwise, whatever you do, you're always careless. Those people, when you go to bed, you suddenly think, oh no, did I turn off my stove? And when you go out of the door, you would think, did I lock the door? Did I do something right? Because when you do something, you were always absent-minded. When you had that bad habit, it won't be easy for you to do things well, and you won't be able to do big. So when you have a good habit of very carefully and conscientiously, then you do it very well. You don't leave something for other people to, make it better. when you have a good habit, then it will be good. Otherwise, it will bring you trouble. If you have a bad habit, sometimes they also have a kind of mindset that they don't do well, but they always require other people to do it well. You need to be very focused, wholeheartedly doing something, and be very present-minded. Well, you cannot change the past, and you don't know about future. Do what is current, what is the present, and be very, very wholeheartedly mind and focused. Don't think that because it's a small thing, when you already formed a habit, then you can do it well.
Thank you, Master. Thank you for your teaching. We just heard the teachings about how to have reverence for the heaven, the earth, the nature, the divinities, and the bodhisattvas, Buddhas. Some online friends say that they hear the stories and might be a little bit scared, but it also reminds us of how to be a good person. Master, do we have any good stories of rewards from retribution? Yes, I do. I can tell a good story now. This is a story that happened in the United States, the story of the wallet. So about 30 years ago in Washington, a wife of a businessman, and the story happened in a cold winter night. So the wife of the businessman lost her wallet in a hospital, and the businessman was very anxious because inside the wallet there are $100,000, and this is a large amount of money. And also, in the wallet, there is a very discreet marketing information. When the businessman arrived at the hospital, he saw that on the corridor there is a very thin, slim girl that is shivering in the corridor, and she is embracing a wallet that his wife lost. So this girl's name is Siada. This is a very rare name. So Siada is in the hospital to look after her sick mother. The businessman got to know Siada and his mother. Their family is very poor, and because of her mother's illness, they have sold everything so that they can have money to treat for the mother. Without money, the hospital could not treat them. Although the hospital is a place to heal illness, but it is also a business. It is not just a charitable organization. Although they are treating you, you still need to make payment for your treatment. And the doctors and the nurses need to earn a living too. So, at that night, Siada is pacing in the corridors of the hospital. She is praying to God. She's dreaming that a kind-hearted person could rescue her mother and help her mother to get treatment. And in the corridor, she saw a woman walk past her and unknowingly dropped her wallet. And maybe it's because the wallet was very slippery and the woman was carrying other things. And so the woman didn't realize that she dropped her wallet. Siada was a little bit far away from the woman when she ran towards the woman and picked up the wallet. And normally, most Americans and Canadians are very polite, and she knows that this is not her wallet, and so she ran after the woman, and she saw the woman stepped on a car and drove away, and so Siada kept the wallet and waited for the woman in the hospital. So Siada waited in the hospital corridor with the wallet. So the wallet was very heavy, and she took the wallet back to her mother's hospital room. And when it opened the wallet, there was a huge amount of money. And both Siada and her mother was aware that this money would cover the cost of her mother's treatments. And they know that the person would definitely come back to find this money because $100,000 is a lot. So, although Siada's mother needed money to pay for her treatment, although they were poor, although they needed food, although she knew that there are other valuables in the wallet, she understands that it's not hers and she's not going to take it. So she closed the wallet and waited in the corridor. The mother told Siada, wait for the lady in the corridor. She must be very worried. No matter how late it is, you have to wait. I think Siada and her mother had a flash thought about whether to keep the money or not, but they did not think for a moment that they should keep it. So Siada waited for the woman in the corridor. So the businessman, after receiving the bag from Siada, give Siada money to treat her mother. Unfortunately, Siada's mother was very sick, so she passed away, and Siada was left alone. So later, the businessman helped Siada to attend college and finish college. Although American university is cheaper for local Americans, but it is still a large sum of money. When Siada's mother was treated in the hospital, they used up all their savings. Without the businessman's help, Siada would never have been able to go to university. After Siada's graduation, the businessman invited Siada to work at his company. So Siada became an employee of the businessman. Siada is a real and smart person. She worked diligently and learned from the businessman. After a few years, Siada was very good in business. When the businessman became older, whenever he made a business decision, he would seek Siada's advice, and he valued Siada's opinions and reminders. The businessman became older and older. After many years, maybe 5, 6, or 8 years, the businessman's health started to decline. And so he said a very unique will. In the will, he said that before he got to know Siada and her mother, he already had a lot of money. But when I stood in front of Siada, who was desperately in need of money, but who didn't keep the 100 grand for herself, and when she returned the money to me, I realized that she is richer than I am. They are noble. They are wealthy. Siada and her mother has affected me. So I need to learn from them. Unfortunately, Siada's mother passed away. I hired Siada, and I adopted Siada for gratitude. But also, it's mainly because I needed a role model in my life. When Siada graduated from her university, her moral principles has not changed, and she is just a simple employee in my company. Her intelligence, her loyalty, her wisdom is far beyond me. And the money I made was because of Siada's advices. I wish that after my death, I hope to give all my assets, billions of assets, to Siada. This is not a gift to her. This is so that my business can continue to prosper, and I wish that my intelligent son can understand my decision. When the businessman's son returned from overseas after his father's death, his son was very smart, and without hesitation, the son happily signed the inheritance agreement. He agreed for Siada to inherit all his father's property, but he had a request. He asked Siada to become his wife. Maybe Siada was just sitting in that room beside them, and the lawyer might have asked Siada that the son wants to marry you. And Siada said yes. And this became a very nice, beautiful story for everyone. A businessman now have money now. Most businessmen, when they start, they say that they're poor, so they want to make a lot of money. And when he met Siada, he realized how wealthy Siada is, that she is not tempted by money. And so in all his future business decisions, Siada has reminded him immoral principles, and so that he was able to earn money that had integrity and dignity in it, that he had responsibility for the society. So the businessman wanted his son to become more kind and wise, and to have more prosperity. And so he wanted his son to marry Siada. Siada is worth billions of dollars. Siada is a kind treasure in this world. If you have her, you don't need to worry about making money. And so this businessman is very wise. Our online friends are very wise. Someone left a message to say that to be a person, moral principles are at the forefront. I have another story about morals. This is a story I know from my childhood. I remember the story of Mr. Liu. It was back in Qinghai. So before the establishment of modern-day China, there was a wealthy person. We call him Grandfather Liu. And Grandfather Liu lived in the village. So Grandfather Liu owns a millwork. So they would mill for flour and press seeds for oil. And so Grandfather Liu has a millwork. And so they have millstones. Some millstones are large and has to be moved by a livestock. And so Grandfather Liu employed over 30 employees. Grandfather Liu is a very kind person. In Qinghai, there are a lot of self-cultivators. And Grandfather Liu's family had genes for compassion. And Grandfather Liu's uncle was a monk. And so he had a very good foundation of kindness and compassion. One day, a mother and a son came to Grandfather Liu's door. The mother was very slim, and they were starving. When they passed by Grandfather Liu's village, Grandfather Liu invited the mother and the son into his home and gave them food. The mother was sick, and Grandfather Liu found a doctor to treat her. The mother and the son lived with Grandfather Liu for half a year. And after half a year, the mother passed away. And the child was alone. The villagers asked the son what he wants to do. The son says that he doesn't know where he came from, and his hometown is very far away. His father has passed away too. So Grandfather Liu asked the child, "Do you want to live with me? I can adopt you." The child was happy because he likes Grandfather Liu's living environment. He was wealthy and had good food. Although the mother has passed away from sickness, but the child has been able to eat food for half a year. And so the child was adopted by Grandfather Liu. So we'll call this child Mr. Liu. Grandfather Lu had 3 biological children, and the adopted child, Mr. Lu, is the youngest child. So he is the 4th child in the family. Grandfather Lu was growing old, and his health is declining. So Mr. Lu followed Grandfather Lu around, helping him in business, acting like a secretary. And so Grandfather Lu took Mr. Lu to do everything. And he also taught him to read and write. Mr. Lu was a smart child. He was very focused and attentive, and he learned from Grandfather Lu, and he took Grandfather Lu as his real father. Usually, fortune and misfortune are always accompanying each other. Grandfather Lu's 3 biological children were not good children. They did a lot of bad things. When Grandfather Lu asked his biological children to work, they all fled. They all wanted to spend money and just indulge themselves. And the person that worked closest to him is Mr. Lu, and he would do everything. And Mr. Lu learned everything from Grandfather Lu. One day, one of Grandfather Lu's biological child gambled, and the casino that he was gambling in was probably opened by the government or the mafia. And this son lost thousands of silver ingots. The son was ashamed and couldn't go back home to face his father. So the casino kidnapped the child and found Grandfather Lu and asked him to bring money to get his son back. And Grandfather Lu was angry and died from it. And after Grandfather Lu died, his 2 other biological children doesn't know how to run the family or the business. But Mr. Lu was in his teenage years. He took over, and he sold some of the family's properties and borrowed enough money to get his foster brother back. And afterward, the new Chinese government was formed. And a few years later, there was Cultural Revolution. But at that time, Mr. Lu has sold everything, and they didn't have land anymore. And so the Communist Party wanted to ask who is the poorest, and Mr. Lu was. And so Mr. Lu became a government official in the village, and Mr. Lu brought the whole family along to join the Communist Party. And he became a government official in the village for many years. After many, many years, during China's economic reform, Mr. Deng said that all Chinese people should do something to earn money for themselves. That as long as you can feed yourself, you can do anything. And so Mr. Lu has a good foundation in business, and he was a government official in the village, so he started to do business again.
就真
这个时候他可能不是卢小四了吧？
Master,
长了就是卢四爷了，是吧？人家
对了，
his name is Mr. Liu, right?
叫卢四爷了。
It's the adopted child.
有经营能力，又有文化，
So he was the administrator of the village, and he is old now. And so he had power and knowledge. So yes, it was in his 60s maybe.
人虽然老，
Although he became old,
康的
but
这个基础，
he had foundation in business.
这些技能，
He had skills in business
他父亲跟着干了
because he followed grandfather Liu around and he learned everything from him.
又做村干部这么多
And he was also the village's official for many years too. So he knows how to do management.
卢四爷先带头去做，
So Mr. Liu started to do business. And he found
事儿找不到上，
millstone
到处乱找的，
and
好不容易凑起来之后就干，哎，干的还是
he started to do mill work again.
啊，他雇人一教就会。
He employed many people too
干起来了，
and taught them how to
哎，那这个
do mill work.
他把这个村里头贫穷的，你想赚钱又是老实的这些
He
人，
gathered people who were poor but who were honest and who wanted to earn money. So all the villagers said that Mr. Liu is a kind person.
吸毒的，
But Mr. Liu's 3
哎，
foster brothers were
不是好人呢，这一
bad
个
people, and so they were never married or started a family. So Mr. Liu had to look after these 3 foster brothers all his life,
好和好招待，他来又来管经，
and he fed and clothed the 3 foster brothers.
他是第一个买上拖拉机的，
Mr. Liu was the first to buy
变成了弄用
electrical
石头磨
machinery.
用那个柴油电动柴油机带着弄石头磨转，他说这个不对，人家让他去县城参观一下，原来说其实已经有这种
So at first, Mr. Liu was
之类的
was using stone mill work,
原始的
and
石头磨成变成机械化，
and
哎，
people invited him into the cities to see how a real factory works, and so he changed into machinery. And so he was doing his business grew and he was feeding
这个县
many villagers and he became a very wealthy person in the village.
活在他
This is a general story of Mr. Liu. I lived with Mr. Liu
我是
for a short while.
可是
I was just a passerby.
跟他给你当
And
客人，先端给我，
Every morning he would bring me a bowl of food. I was just maybe about 16 years old. This is how he treated people. He was very kind.
我说我那个时候小时候，
When I was
别人
young,
觉得我是个好人，我有点被尊重的感觉，就是在卢四爷，
I only felt respect from Mr.
对
Liu.
人特别好，
He was very kind to people.
他不是
He
说
didn't
天
fake
上的
it.
天下的感觉
He didn't
他是一个又聪明
cheat.
又
He
实
was
在
a
又善良
intelligent, honest, and
卢
kind
四爷在
person.
任何一个时代
So no matter which era Mr. Liu lived in, he would be protected and blessed by Buddha so that he wouldn't suffer.
很多的人生经验，可是他对
After Mr. Liu
这种尊重，
became older, although he had a lot of life experience, he was still treating young master very kindly. His kindness started from his young age. His true character is kind and righteous.
人家村里人
He is very respectful.
说卢四爷
All the villagers said that
知恩图报的，
对他知恩
Mr. Liu knows how to repay gratitude.
救了他，
Yes,
救了他妈，收养了他嘛哈。
he repaid
送终
grandfather Liu's kindness.
非常重要的大人生的大事的。
This is a very important thing in his life.
死之后呢，自己也很能干哈。
Although he was adopted by grandfather Liu, he did a lot and fed his foster brothers, although they didn't do anything.
读院外的话，其实应该
So
在天之灵也是很欣慰的。
Grandfather Liu, although he passed away, he is probably very happy. Although his 3 biological sons didn't have any work, but they were able to live a peaceful life.
卢四爷他善
So we're talking about Mr. Liu having a lot of kindness and having a prosperous family and life. But we can also see Grandfather Liu. Grandfather Liu took care of Mr. Liu and his mother and treated Mr. Liu's mother and raised Mr. Liu. And starting from his action, the entire village was benefited from Mr. Liu's actions. Whether it's the older generation or the younger generation, Mr. Liu's behavior has brought him very good results. Grandfather Liu had a kind heart and had a rewarding retribution for his children. And Mr. Liu has a grateful heart, and his kind behavior was able to have rewarding retribution for his own life. I envy him, and I also respect him because Grandfather Liu and Mr. Liu, they were connected by karma. And it's all because they choose a very beautiful behavior and beautiful mindset. The third son of Grandfather Liu told me that when Grandfather Liu is facing a kind deed, he only worries to do it too late. Grandfather Liu's uncle was a monk, and every year, Grandfather Liu would give a large percent of the profit and donate it to his uncle's monastery. There are more and more monks in the monastery, and when there is not enough rooms to live, Grandfather Liu gives them money to build more residence. These kind behaviors and these offerings has helped him to avoid many disasters. They were very rich. If they were rich in the Cultural Revolution, it would be a disaster. But they were very lucky. One of the sons gambled and lost all their money. Also, it seems as a very bad situation, but it actually helps them that they are poor now so that they won't be denounced by the Red Guards. And they were able to live through the Cultural Revolution in peace and safety. And this is all because of their ancestors' accumulated good merits. One of their neighbors told me that Mr. Liu was sent by Bodhisattvas. She told me that Mr. Liu was a poor child that was starving, but he is very kind and very intelligent. He can remember everything he sees, and he is more hardworking than Grandfather Liu's biological children. Anyone who goes to him for help, he will never say no. He had such good morals. There are many layers of meaning in the story. I think all the friends can re-listen this story. I remember there was a misunderstanding that happened. One of the police asked Mr. Liu to go to the police station, but it was a misunderstanding. All the villagers took their tools and dared the police to take Mr. Liu away. The villagers stood up for Mr. Liu to protect him. He had all the villagers' hearts. Kind hearts will have rewarding retributions. These are the cause and effect. When we understand to have reverence for the heaven, the earth, all beings, and all beings will help us and benefit us, whether it's a grain of wheat. Because we have all for it, that's why we don't waste it. When we are spending money, we don't waste money, but we are not keeping every cent as well. Master, I want to share something. Master, when you were drawing a prize, one of the sisters in Toronto received Master's fan. And when she received Master's fan, she was very happy. And she took a picture with the fan. And she wants to share her story with Master. My husband had a muscle injury on his left shoulder about a month ago, and he couldn't raise his left arm. And even when he went to see the doctors, there was nothing to be done. And yesterday, when I received Grandmaster's fan, I used the fan to give him energy healing. After 5 hours, my husband was able to raise his hand over his head, and he was very happy. Thank you, Master, for your compassionate blessing. So she sponsored our online platform and online live broadcasting, and she was rewarded with Master's fan, and with this fan, she was able to help her husband. This is very good. Congratulations. Master, last week, the friends online was very lucky. They saw Master painting on the live broadcast. I was very touched. One person said that while watch Master sincerely painting with every single stroke, I feel the blessing. And I am very touched, and I started crying. I felt Master's compassion. And Master said that, told us what the meaning is for the flower blossoms. And the friend said that although I'm crying, but I'm very happy in my heart. It's been a week. Master, could you show us the completed artwork? Yes, let me show you. This painting was painted on white canvas, and so I added some background color. And I feel that it looks much more beautiful now. And I signed in both Chinese and English, so English speakers can understand it too. These flowers were painted during the live broadcast, and I didn't change it afterward. I only added the background and the signature. Master, I saw it, and I don't know if my feelings are right. I feel that there is a special aura in the background, and it seems like many blossoms of flowers, as if the 5 flowers are floating on top of other flowers, and it's very clear. It's very beautiful. But there's also a depth in it. There are deeper meanings. Thank you, Master. Just like when I painted the flowers, I wish that everyone can have wisdom, can receive blessing from Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so that our life so that we can have wisdom. With wisdom, we will have compassion and creativity. A life full of creativity will be full of happiness. In a person's life, if we can create, that will be the most happy for me. Painting also gives me happiness too. In the past few days, I've painted several paintings. We promised that we would give pictures of this painting to 12 people who I drew for a prize. And we have finished the picture. And so within the next month, you should be able to receive the photograph. And I hope that everyone who has this picture and everyone who sees this picture will be auspicious, and that you will bloom in wisdom. Thank you, Grandmaster. My paintings are very simple. I think simple things shouldn't be complicated, and so I use very simple strokes. This is how I paint. For artists, it's too childish. But for me, I feel very happy when I paint. I hope everyone who sees it will feel happy too. It's been 2 hours today. I hope that all the young friends will have awe for everything and everyone. Back in ancient times, the ancient people had more reverence and fear for the nature and people. In modern world, with a lot of knowledge, you may have lost some traditional experience and traditional wisdom. With modern influences, with Western influences, and denying your traditional wisdom is very funny. If we are able to integrate the old and the new, then we can truly have wisdom. Don't throw away your treasure like garbage. Learn to use everything so that we can stand on this world, so that maybe we can become a divinity in the legends. I like the state where I can pick up anything and use it as a medicine, that I can dance in the wind, that I can become one with the environment and enjoy it. If you cannot become one with the nature in harmony, then you will be limited, whether it's your living environment, your career, your relationship with others, or your family. It's all the same. Only when you learn to respect, you can become one in harmony. When you become one with everything in harmony, you can use anything as medicine, and this is Tao. Slowly, we will be able to learn it. Through our teachings in the Family Precepts series and a few other classes, I hope that you have learned something. Today is the 20th session of Family Precepts. There's one last session. To have awe is very important, and within it there's no large or small. As large as presidents and kings, as small as every citizen. To have a good grasp, to have a feeling of awe. This world can serve you. I hope everyone can have this state of mind. Starting from your family, starting from eating utensils, your chopsticks, knives, forks, dishes, tables, chairs, to your pens, to your stove, to the water you drink, to the mug. If you have respect for it, you will realize how beautiful it becomes. And when you hold the bowl and the glass, you won't drop it. The pet that you have, if you are truly kind to it, you will realize that you can talk to it. If you love your bed and your pillow, when you lay down, you will feel very comfortable. Give it a try. If you say that I hate you, you will feel very uncomfortable when you lay on it. So we need to learn to have reverence and love. When there is also fear, we call it awe. If it's just reverence, it's compassion. If it's reverence and fear, having awe, is having tao. Whether you have tao or whether you are a compassionate person, you are more likely to become one with the world. The world can be used by you. So I hope that all my friends, I hope that you can all understand something. Our next live session will be on Saturday. On Saturday, we will have a different content than before. What's difference? Let's meet on Saturday. All right, this is a secret for now. Thank you. I wish you all happy, healthy, longevity, safety, and peace. If you have reverence for everything, you can pick up anything and use it as medicine. The whole world can be used by you.
小的红点里，人生就此欢喜。我快乐了，我健康了，我幸福了，我美丽了。在茫茫人海之中，让我与你相遇。小小的红点里，人生变得神奇。我智慧了，我宽容了，我慈悲了，我自在了。因为有了你，生命变得更坚定，不忧无虑。因为有了你，日子不再有哭泣，不再有恐惧。我快乐了，我健康了，我幸福了，我美丽了。智慧了，我宽容了。 快乐。